I mean, they can barely move. You just have to like stab at them with a flint dagger and, into their shell, and they'll die. Like, how could those things have possibly survived with humans? So, I guess like the theory would be they were very restricted for whatever reason to like a coastal fringe, that stretched from like the Pacific coast down like Panama, and then around like the kind of Atlantic coast of South America. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard for a lot of people, including Nick Patterson, to believe, and I kind of agree. And like furthermore too, there's issues with like the model itself, where if you like look at South American Amerindian groups, you'd expect that they'd be like relatively homogeneous in the amount of this kind of parallel australoid ancestry, and instead you see like widespread heterogeneity like in the amounts of this thing, which could be due to like very recent mixing, but I mean, some of the stuff is from like these incredibly inbred tribes, like the Kiritana. So, I mean, I don't know. It baffles everyone.
It's definitely fascinating, but I have to like. There's no other way they could have gotten to the Americas really, other than that same land bridge everybody else did.
I mean, when there is like a really wild theory that humans made it to New Zealand like 50,000 years before everyone thought, and that they crossed the Antarctic land bridge, but like sailed from New Zealand to Antarctica, and then like ate penguins all the way to South America before like crossing from, the greater Antarctic ice shelf to South America. But I mean, even that theory is just so ludicrous, because like you've got the Furious 50s, the waves are just like horrendous. If they had rafts or dugout canoes, like there's no way you can survive that kind of journey.
Yeah, and the naval like the seafarer technology at the time would have just been so primitive. Like it's not like the Polynesians crossing the Pacific like thousands and thousands of years later. Right?
Yeah.
Because even like now, like crossing the Pacific is a big deal, like on a ship. But to think like that somebody could have done it in just like a simple canoe or something like that really does kind of defy all believability.
I'm gonna get a drink of water real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh, that's fine.
Runs. Getting at climate-controlled ceilings of some sites, and it's wild.
I remember a few years ago, like I watched this interview with this Chinese doctor who was convinced the Chinese did not originate as a result of an out of Africa migration. That they were just descended from like previous hominids like living in mainland East Asia.
Yeah, that's pretty common for we-was types in East Asia. Like the North Koreans are really big on an out-of-Korea model of mankind's origins. They deny anything else as being Japanese propaganda.
The other thing I think is interesting is like Japanese hunter-gatherers and Tibetan hunter-gatherers had like Y haplogroup D, and like those are still pretty common in Tibet and Japan today. So like, were these sort of para Jomon like people just much more extant, like all the way from Japan through coastal China, like even into the Tibetan plateau?
Yeah, like that Guangxi race, or Guangxi, however you pronounce it. It was distantly related to the Jomon. So they're probably Y haplogroup D2.
Because I read that one article about like the diffusion of like the one model for the diffusion of Altaic languages, and it said that like, early Korean farmers had some Jomon-like ancestry, but then later ones didn't. Like, so presumably just further waves of mainland East Asian farmers diluted it so much until it was undetectable.
Yeah, that's always possible.
It's interesting. Like I won't claim to be an expert on East Asian prehistory by any means, considering that like I've really only read a little bit.
I've been meaning to read that Archaeology of China book, but haven't gotten around to it.
I have one on the Jomon and just one on the Archaeology of Japan, which I've been meaning to read. Like I am curious though, like if like for I'm not sure how to say it exactly. Like if like stereotypically Chinese and mainland East Asian populations are very short and very slim. Like if that happened just as a result of having like, such a plant-based diet, like for the last 9,000 years.
I don't think it's as much of a plant-based diet thing as it is just getting up to the Malthusian limits like over and over again. There's going to be, selection for shorter people since they're less likely to starve in the famines because they need less energy. There's going to be more selection for the shorties. Manlets rise up.
Probably. Well, that does remind me. Like I read the newish article on North Africa that for some reason it seems like the local Ibero-Maurasian North African hunter-gatherers actually adapted agriculture like from the invading Iberian farmers.
Yeah, North Africa is a really interesting case. Because the Ibero-Maurasians were like the gigachads of the Paleolithic.
Well, I've also it's funny like there was literally a Lake Megachad.
Yeah, there's Lake Megachad. I mean, that was the Green Sahara, though. Like, the Sahara was actually larger in the Ice Age than it is now.
That's true. Like it's a bit of a forced meme, but the memes almost write themselves.
Yeah. The Ibero-Maurasians, like, the thing about that paper that really stuck out to me was how small their effective population size was, and how it kept on getting smaller. Like, they were relatively inbred as far as people went. And yet they were like giants. They were what, like 180 centimeters tall on average or something. Their skull sizes were like 100 cubic centimeters